Let's talk a little bit about Flannery O'Connor. Now, we're not going to actually discuss the stories this week. Next Tuesday, I'm going to post videos discussing our two short stories, A Good Man is Hard to Find and The Life You Save May Be Your Own. Wow. O'Connor is going to present some very uncomfortable truths. Now, Chopin is, one of the figures leading of feminism and basically, getting us to look at women's rights and the experience of women in a realistic way. I probably should devote a little bit more time to American realism because of how important it is, but I don't want to. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to move straight into the modern. And because this is where the stories start to get really, really, really intense. Flannery O'Connor is also interesting because she's designated as a Southern writer. So we should feel a little bit of, what's the word, camaraderie here. Now, O'Connor plays with an idea of morality that's going to make your head spin because it is a very Christian view of morality, but it leads her to some frighteningly dark places. Now, I don't even know how we would talk about this from a theoretical perspective, but O'Connor really charges a great deal of Catholic morality. And for her, she has a kind of a weird personal interpretation of Catholicism in her writing. First off, for O'Connor, innocence, lack of blame, is not necessarily something that you want. You do not want to be innocent in a Flannery O'Connor story because innocent characters and innocent people are the ones who are victimized the most. Now, from a Christian perspective, why would she do this? We always think of Christianity as being a force of morals and values and, treat people the way that you would want to be treated, yada, yada, yada. Well, for O'Connor, it's not necessarily like that. And I'm going to try to explain why she did some of the things that she did in her writing. For O'Connor, who is the ultimate innocent that we can think of? Who is the ultimate innocent? Well, it pretty much has to be Jesus, right? Jesus of Nazareth was supposed to be, according to Catholic and Christian, I don't want to say myth, but that can get me in kind of a bit of trouble, but to the Christian Catholic worldview, Jesus was a man without sin. This is often why, when we look at the historical Jesus, we get kind of uncomfortable when we start looking at the potential that he may have had a wife and children. We don't often entertain that, because he was supposed to be completely without sin. He was supposed to be divine, right? But what was Jesus' function in the New Testament? Jesus came to earth to sacrifice himself for our sin. He paid the price for the filth and for the horrible things that we do. Now, I'm going to go on a bit of a weird tangent here. Jack Chick just died. And I don't know how many of you guys know who Jack Chick is. But Chick and Chick tracts have been very, very popular things in American culture, at least in the South. I grew up knowing about Jack Chick and his religious tracts. You can find a very odd understanding of morality from a Christian perspective by looking at Jack Chick and at Ray Comfort, prominent apologist. He's recently released a new movie called The Atheist Delusion. You should really check out some of the commentary that they have online for those. I don't want to reference the Bible Reloaded directly because they would be very offensive for most people, but they've made a real project of going over Chick tracts. But Jack Chick and Ray Comfort both exalt this worldview of morality that is, morals are not based on works. You don't go to heaven based on the right or the wrong things that you do. You can't earn your way there, right? Now, a lot of people who adopt the Christian worldview are going to be nodding their head with that. But when you take this to its extreme, you come to some very unsettling realizations. If salvation is based not upon works, then for the Christian worldview, it is in the professed faith of Jesus Christ, right? You go to heaven based upon the fact that you accept Christ as your Savior. There is no other way up. Ray Comfort talks about this quite a bit, and Jack Chick makes a constant point in his comics. I really should post a few images from these, but if you want to look them up, feel free. You can Google them and just, I think you can see all of them for free. But Jack Chick constantly makes the point that you could be the best person on planet Earth and you could commit, virtually no wrongs, but you are evil because you are descended from Adam. And you must have a divine sacrifice in order to make it into heaven. And he makes this point over and over and over again. So that this culminates into what the Bible Reloaded recently did commentary on, which is the worst, or they deemed the worst, Chick tract. And trust me, I'm coming back to O'Connor in a minute, but this actually connects really well. Jack Chick produced a comic about parents who were sexually abusing and physically abusing their daughter. And they eventually accept Jesus Christ as their Savior, and they are brought into heaven. Or, you know what? No, that's one of the few examples, I think, where they don't die and go to heaven. But instead, it's implied that the family relationship is fixed with the acceptance of Christ. This is an interesting idea, because it leaves us with a sense that justice in the earthly sense does not have to be enforced as long as they, are part of the Christian group. Now, back to O'Connor. O'Connor takes this to a dark extreme as well. For O'Connor, innocence is made to be victimized. The sacrifice of Jesus is a mirror that we constantly kind of play out in real life. That people who are innocent are fit to be cannibalized for the salvation and redemption of people around them. This constantly plays itself out in O'Connor stories. That innocent people are the ones who are treated the worst. And think about it. When you are innocent, when you have done no wrong, you are typically extremely vulnerable. Sinfulness is also implied that you are a survivalist, right? You're willing to stretch moral boundaries in order to protect yourself, usually victimizing people who are more innocent. So for O'Connor, the conscious sacrifice of Jesus Christ reveals for us a bit of a moral complication. The fact is that the innocent are basically there to be consumed. Now, she derived this from Christian orthodoxy, the idea that works do not get you into heaven. So, as we explore these stories, what you'll find is that people who are innocent they're not even necessarily good people. They're usually idiots. They're usually people who, it's not that they have been innocent through moral strength. They're innocent because of an ineptitude and a mental inability to commit sin for their own personal gain. That is a very dark vision of morality. It reminds me a lot of the writer Ayn Rand. Objectivism basically is, and this is an oversimplification to be fair, might equals right is how Ayn Rand would phrase this. Now, for O'Connor, she doesn't exactly advocate this. It's not like she's writing these stories with all this abuse and all of this victimization to say that it's morally correct to be corrupt and to be a victimizer rather than a victim. Rather, O'Connor takes this view of things that is very detached and very removed from the action. She sees these things playing out, and she tells us about it with a kind of moral disconnectedness. Now, here's the darkest part. Here's the part that will kind of leave you awake at night. O'Connor was a devout Catholic. And when she wrote these stories, when she wrote these twisted morality plays where people are victimized and brutalized for the salvation of the lower among us, she would read these stories out loud to her friends. Guess what she was doing as she read? She was dying laughing. For O'Connor, there is a sick humor in the constant process with which innocence is cannibalized. Because remember, innocence is not a triumph. Innocence is usually an expression of a lack of mental capacity. So, as this poor, mentally handicapped girl goes to what is probably her doom in The Life You Save May Be Your Own, she was probably laughing. These are stories from people who knew her. That for her, these stories had a black comical element to them of the farce of what they illustrated. Now here's the interesting question. And here's what I'm going to pose to you for a discussion next week when we get more into the details of these texts. How true was O'Connor's Christianity? I'm inclined to think from the historical evidence that she was pretty devoutly Catholic, but she's going to make some implications in these stories that are going to strike you as horrific. And again, more than likely, she's doing it for comedic effect. You might not feel that way, but here it is. How true was her Christianity? Can we derive any real morality from this process? The fact that the innocents are fit to be cannibalized. Let's see what you come up with. Thank you.